Tianbao Fu Yao Lu. Chapter 175. The relocation of the imperial capital. Hung Jun watched Li Longji very calmly. He was filled with a sense of foreignness at the sight of this old man, because 3 years ago on Mount Li, when he had seen the emperor set out personally on an expedition, he had looked nothing like the old, wizened man he was now. Every time Hung Jun came to the Jinhuoluo to see him, Li Longji had steadily grown older, but the change wasn't as obvious as it was now. Hung Jun had read in medical books before that humans could suffer from an illness that made them suddenly age and grow forgetful. It was called the soul-losing, language-forgetting illness, which would, at times, completely wipe their memories clean, and at times, if their tempers were explosive, they would do things of their own accord for no reason at all. As for the Li clan, from Li Yuan onwards, this illness appeared often in the family history of this royal clan. Even if Yang Kuozhong had the power to command the heavens, the emperor of the human realm was still under the protection of the Ziwei star, and even a Yao Jiao had no way to poison the human emperor. Li Jinglong, Li Longji said slowly, pointing a finger at Mo Rijin. Head towards the Yellow River and call that black Jiao out for Zhen. Assist Zhen in fighting it. Mo Rijin did not reply. Instead, he narrowed his eyes, still thinking. Li Longji, however, suddenly flew into a great rage and began shouting, "How dare you! How dare you! You all, none of you are loyal to me. Especially you. Li Jinglong. Guards. Take him away. Your Majesty, please calm yourself." Imperial consort Yang hurriedly tugged on the sleeve of Li Longji's robe. Li Longji moved as if he wished to pull out his sword and cut down Hung Jun and Mo Rijin, but he fell back heavily into his seat, gasping for air. Imperial father. It was right then that Li Hung led a group of officials into the Jinhuoluo, just as Li Longji raged, "Where are the troops? Zhen had you go gather the troops." There were only a few scattered officials behind Li Hung, and only Gao Lishi really counted as someone useful. The rest of them were some no-name officials and ministers, as well as Huang Yang of the Judiciary Department. Not a single one present was from the commander of the 6 armies. No matter how dull Hung Jun could be, he could also sense that in the 2 years that they hadn't seen each other, Li Longji was already approaching the point of losing all his followers. Moreover, those officials with even the slightest discernment could tell that Li Longji's illness was severe. His valiant, heroic deeds, in the face of his old age, left him with naught but Yang Yuhuan staying at his side. But when he thought about the beheaded Gao Xianzi and Feng Changqing, he couldn't summon up any sympathy for Li Longji as he stood in front of him in this moment. "The Marquis of Yadan is very ill," Li Hung said to the group. "The Fushi, Mo Rijin, has promised that they will do their best to protect all of the citizens of Chang'an as they evacuate." Huang Yang could never have imagined that the universally derided Li Jinglong and the exorcism department back then would, in such a situation where the entire country was facing a crisis, would become their sole life-saving straw that they clutched at. Li Hung continued calmly, "Everyone, we may as well start the preparations immediately to evacuate everyone out of Chang'an." "Where shall we flee to?" Gao Lishi asked, his voice quivering. "Can't Chang'an be held?" "It can't," Mo Rijin replied darkly. "If you are willing to stay, please do as you see fit, but under the pretense of having the emperor personally lead an expedition, please have the 6 armies escort the royal family in temporarily relocating the capital." Li Hung breathed in deeply, before saying, "Have the troops split in 2, first. One group will relocate the imperial court towards Lingluo, where they will await General Guo Suiyi to return and assist the emperor. The 6 armies will protect His Majesty and retreat into Bashu." Huang Yang couldn't resist asking, "If An Lushan manages to ford the Yellow River and come towards us, what should we do then?" "Then retreat further," Li Hung replied coldly. "Retreat towards Liangzhou, and continue to do so until Li Jinglong wakes up and is able to deal with An Lushan appropriately." Lingluo was not far from Chang'an, and it had the natural protection of the Yellow River, so retreating towards the western frontier after that would be the best choice. However, if the exorcism department have not been able to deal with Lushan, and the rebels continued to head westward, they would have no choice but to retreat into Liangzhou. If they continued after that, they would have to retreat out into Siwai. When the officials got to that point in their thoughts, they couldn't help the swell of absurdity they felt in their hearts. Zhen will personally lead this expedition. From the middle lounger in the Jinhu logo came Li Longji's doddering old voice, and the group had no choice but to turn a deaf ear to his words. Set out. Li Hong glanced at the lounger in the center, and his gaze swept over Yang Yahuan. In a cold, detached voice, he said, Kong Hung Jun, promise me that you will protect my father until he has withdrawn from Chang'an. Hung Jun wasn't worried about Li Longji. After all, despite being old, he still has the protection of the Ziwei star, so the Yaoguai wouldn't dare to attack him directly no matter what. He hummed in agreement. With that, the officials all took their leave. Just as Li Hong was about to leave, however, Yang Yahuan said, Your Highness, please wait. This lowly concubine has something she wishes to say. Hung Jun was just about to request that Yang Yahuan move, but upon hearing those words, he stopped. If we are to retreat from the capital, what will happen to the ancestral temples and the soil and grain? Yang Yahuan asked. If Lushan follows the example of Dongzhou, the Litang's ancestral temples will all be destroyed. How will your imperial father, when he goes down to the 9 springs below, have the face to see all your ancestors? Li Hong had been quashed under the Yang family for a long time, and at the root of it, it was because of Yang Yahuan that Yang Kuazhong's faction had gained the upper hand in the imperial court. As of now, his old father had already lost half his soul, and though Li Hong knew this didn't have anything to do with the Yang family, there were some things that were beyond the bounds of what was humanly possible. In the end, he couldn't convince himself to reduce the disgust and revulsion that he felt towards Yang Yahuan, even by a little bit. The citizens are the most important, then the soil and the grain. The ruler is the least important, Li Hong said darkly. Have the successive generations of the Li family not been humiliated enough by Yu Yaoguai's evil arts? Upon hearing those words, Yang Yahuan's face changed colors. Hung Jun couldn't bear listening to this any further, but just as he was about to speak up and persuade him to stop, Yang Yahuan's expression gentled and she said sternly, If your highness the crown prince suspects me of being a Yaoguai, why not command the exorcists to check? If I am revealed to be nothing more than a mortal, then what? The fires of rage in Li Hong's heart were at their highest, and he instantly grabbed the hilt of his crown prince sword. Hung Jun immediately turned and shielded Imperial Consort Yang. Your Highness. Li Hong's expression was dark. Step aside. You know clearly in your heart whose subordinate you are. But Hung Jun did not back down even the slightest bit. Mo Rijin, instead, pressed one hand to the back of the crown prince's hand and said coldly, Your Highness. The 6 armies were in an uproar, all of them with Yaoguai are wreaking havoc and destroying my great Tang hanging off their lips. The conflicts the Yang family had with the soldiers in the army had been slowly amassing for a long time now, and Li Hong had long since felt the desire to kill Yang Yahuan. In this world, as of now, only she is looking after your old father, Hung Jun said. Why don't you pull that sword out and see what you can do? Each member of the exorcism department was as unyielding as bone. Mo Rijin, Li Jinglong, and the rest, despite their stubbornness, were still mortals that walked this red dust, but now that Hung Jun, whom the smoke and dust of the human realm didn't touch, had come, Li Hong had finally gained some insight. Suddenly, he thought about what he had heard of before, that the Yang family and the Kong family had a long history together, and he forced himself to swallow down this anger of his. Yang Yahuan stood behind Hung Jun, not feeling even a shred of fear. She said coldly, The spiritual tablets of your ancestors must be moved, otherwise in the coming days, not only your father but even you will have no face to show when you see your ancestors under the earth. Send someone to do this, Li Hong said to Mo Rijin. Yang Yahuan added, the tablets of the martyrs in the Linjian pavilion must also be taken away. Li Hong shut his eyes and sucked in a deep breath. The hand he had pressed to the hilt of his sword would not stop trembling. Let me go, Hung Jun said to Yang Yahuan. You should go and have the emperor prepare to set out. Yang Yahuan continued, the women and children in the palace, amongst the citizens and within the ranks of each main official's family must have bodyguards escorting them. Otherwise, amidst the chaos of the soldiers, when the soldiers and horses scramble about, they may be subject to humiliation. Li Hong said darkly, I will write a personal letter and give it to you and have people carry these tasks out. Is there anything else? Yang Yahuan looked at Li Hong quietly. The atmosphere was impossibly tense. After a long while, Yang Yahuan said lightly, there is nothing else. When your father was still clear-headed, he was always fixated on you. Once, because fire and water could not get along, there was a battle of words as sharp and cutting as blades, and the blame ended up falling on my big brother. That was when disunity increased in my Yang family, causing widespread exclusion and widening schisms between individuals. When Hung Jun heard those words, his heart suddenly skipped a beat. Yang Yahuan's words were rather full of an ominous intent, as if these words, on her deathbed, could make her forget the pain and suffering of living and turn her thoughts towards the better. Li Hong seemed to have understood something, and he turned to leave, saying nothing more. Before he walked out of the Jinhuoluo, Yang Yahuan said one last thing. Amongst all his children, when your father spoke of you, it was never the same as the others. Throughout his life, I will show him filial piety. Li Hong didn't let Yang Yahuan continue talking. I will take your word for it, Yang Yahuan said. Mo Rijin glanced meaningfully at Hung Jun. Yang Yahuan said quietly, what a pity that there is no one now to prepare pastries for you to eat, Hung Jun. Back in the past, Dr. Kong saved my life and now, it is his child who has saved my life once more. I do not know when I will be able to repay your Kong family's kindness. Hung Jun comforted her. It will be all right, imperial consort. You should go. Yang Yahuan called over some bodyguards to help the aged Li Longji back towards the inner palace. Hung Jun and Mo Rijin crossed through the gardens and came out before Hung Jun said, I'll go to the Linjian pavilion. What are you going to the Linjian pavilion for? There were some times that Mo Rijin really couldn't stand Hung Jun. It was an empty promise. Is there any point in going? The fire's burning our eyebrows right now. Hung Jun's words dried up again. Every time, at such a crucial moment as this, Mo Rijin felt as if he couldn't understand Hung Jun. Yet as they interacted more and more, he often felt as if Hung Jun, with his unique principles and unbending will, had seen through too many rises and falls in this world with his two eyes alone. The words came to his lips, but after he mused over them time and again, he swallowed them back down. All right, Mo Rijin said at last. Go quickly so that you can come back as soon. Hung Jun nodded. Go back and look after Jinglong well for me. As soon as I escort them out of the city, I will return right away. Hung Jun and Mo Rijin took their leave of each other in the imperial gardens, splitting up to carry out their tasks. The Linjian pavilion was to the northeast of Xingqing Palace. Back when the Great Tang had first been established, Li Shimin had constructed this little two-story pavilion, inside of which stood the portraits and memorial tablets of those officials who had helped to establish the country. Afterwards, important officials would, from time to time, be added to their ranks to pay homage to them, but when Wuzhou moved the divine capital to Luoyang, the Linjian pavilion was no longer in use. As of now, it was a dusty little two-story tower. With his throwing knives, Hung Jun cut the lock in two and walked into that dimly lit tower. Just as he was about to take down the portraits, a voice suddenly spoke from behind him. Why aren't you keeping your beloved company? Hung Jun let out an exclamation of surprise, but when he turned, he actually saw Qing Xiang. Qing Xiang looked the same as he always had, standing there under the murky sunlight, his upper half body bare, wearing a set of dark brown long pants. Qing Xiang. Never in his wildest dreams would Hung Jun have imagined that he would run into Qing Xiang at this moment. He swiftly went forward, and for a moment, seemed to have returned to his childish mindset from many years ago when all he wanted to do was to leap onto him. But as he took that first running step, he suddenly felt embarrassed, and he said, "You. How come you're here?" "I've come to see you," Qing Xiang said. He had his back to the light, so it looked as if his silhouette was glowing. "Your dad wants you to go back to Yejin Palace, leave the human realm behind on this very day and come with me. Would you come with me?" Hung Jun had too many questions he wanted to ask him. He hadn't expected that Qing Xiang would beat him to the punch and bring this matter up once again. "Am I going to die very soon?" Hung Jun suddenly asked. Qing Xiang studied Hung Jun. His gaze was markedly different from how it had been in the past, as if to Hung Jun, he was looking at someone else. "Ever since you were small, you've been very smart," Qing Xiang said. "A wise man appears dull and a great intellect appears foolish. Whoever treated you well, whoever hasn't treated you well, you've always remembered in your heart." Hung Jun did not reply, because even through the gaze that Qing Xiang had trained on him, he could dimly sense that who he was looking at was not Hung Jun but rather his father, Kong Xian, whom he had held brotherly affections for many years ago. The Kun god could predict the future, so he could also predict Hung Jun's life and death. Perhaps the reason Qing Xiang had come today was to see him one last time. "Where's my dad?" Hung Jun suddenly asked. "He said that since you won't go home to him," Qing Xiang said, starting to smile slightly, "he doesn't want to see you again." Hung Jun watched Qing Xiang fixedly. Qing Xiang let out a long sigh, as if he had set down a heavy rock burdening his heart, and after a long while he said, "Hung Jun, you've grown up." Hung Jun responded to that with silence. Qing Xiang continued, "If you say that you'll let it go, then you've been able to let it go. Since you picked Li Jinglong, you've never looked back. You are, as expected, so very similar to how your father was back in the days. The you right now is no longer that sobbing, crying you, that Chongming chased down the Taihang Mountains back then. Do you regret how you came to the human realm back in the beginning?" "I don't regret it," Hung Jun replied, smiling slightly. Qing Xiang reached out and lifted Hung Jun's chin. After a long time, he finally gently stroked Hung Jun's cheek. "From here on out, you must walk on your own," Qing Xiang said. "That's what I've always thought," Hung Jun replied. In that moment, Qing Xiang scattered, turning into countless dots of light that dispersed on the wind, drifting out of the Linjian pavilion. At the very top of this two-story tower sat a king clad in a fiery red royal robe, his hair like burning flames. His golden eyes looked out into the distance, right at the billowing black clouds that were currently advancing towards Chang'an. In the central courtyard of the exorcism department, Lu Su lifted the comatose Li Jinglong into the cart. Suddenly, he stopped in his movements, looking towards the silhouetted form of that middle-aged person that had appeared at some point in the alleyway. Within the exorcism department, Qiu Yangxi and the rest of them suddenly stopped in the middle of discussing their battle strategy, and they all rose to their feet. "How did you get in?" Qiu Yangxi asked coldly, his forehead furrowed. "The door-locking spell is modified from the spatial array in the dragon-subduing tower," Yang Qiuzhong smiled slightly as he replied easily. "To bystanders, it might be considered a barrier, but how could that stop me from entering?" As if they were facing down their mortal enemy, the exorcists all began to secretly cast their spells. Yang Qiuzhong, however, had already seen through their motions, and he smiled. "Last time, in the Daming Palace, everyone here already used powerful skill after powerful skill to beat me bloody and blue. If you want to capture me and take me back to the dragon-subduing tower, there will be no need for such large-scale actions again. If the immortal attacks, I will not be able to escape." And saying this, Yang Qiuzhong glanced at the carpiao at the side of the pond. The carpiao immediately leaped out of the water and trotted to hide behind Qiu Yangxi. Xiaoyu. Qiu Yangxi, however, began to laugh. He opened the folding fan in his hand and moved to stand in front of the group of exorcists, saying derisively, "This trouble that you flushed out is not easy to deal with, you know. You seem to not understand me very well. I am a person who likes to go against the flow. If you feel like I definitely won't seize you and send you back to the tower, well then, I absolutely must do so." And as he said that, Qiu Yangxi waved the brush in his hand and continued, "No matter what else you say, you cannot be allowed to leave today." Glowing sigils instantly flowed out of the tip of Qiu Yangxi's brush like water, and they instantly circled around Yang Qiuzhong, beginning to revolve. Yang Qiuzhong stood in the middle, his hands behind his back, yet he did not lose his confidence. "Why don't we make another deal?" Atai replied coldly, "Last time, when we struck a deal with you, we almost ended up losing everything because of what you did. We can't trust you anymore." "Then capture me," Yang Qiuzhong said. "And if you do not believe me after this, send me back to the tower at any point." As soon as he finished speaking, Qiu Yangxi's sigils formed up with a weng, closing in around Yang Qiuzhong. They turned into 3 bands of glowing blue which trapped him solidly within them. When Yang Qiuzhong was bound in such a way, he immediately staggered and fell to his knees on the ground. Qiu Yangxi held a talisman in his hand, his forehead furrowed deeply, but no matter what he did, he couldn't press the talisman against his head. But as long as the talisman stuck, the dragon subduing array would activate, and Yang Qiuzhong would be transported right back into the dragon subduing tower, never to escape again. "Attack!" Lu Su said anxiously. But Yang Qiuzhong said darkly, "If you stick this talisman on, you may end up missing out on this chance to save your comrade. This won't count, because this is a life for a life. Right now, if you toss me into the abyss in the dragon subduing tower, no one will be able to save your life this time, Qiu Yang. See." The fingers that Qiu Yangxi was using to pinch that talisman trembled slightly. Several times, he moved as if he wanted to press it to Yang Qiuzhong's forehead, but finally, he listened to the devil's whisper and put the talisman away. "Speak," Qiu Yangxi said. "Take me and Hung Jun to Xian Lushan," Yang Qiuzhong said. "The Kun God's plan is destined to fail. Only I can save him." "Lu Su." Everyone glanced at each other. Yang Qiuzhong looked towards Lu Su. No one else knew what had occurred, not even Qiu Yangxi, so everyone turned towards Lu Su. Lu Su's voice trembled as he asked, "How do you know about the Kun God's plan?" Yang Qiuzhong said solemnly, "As of now, Lushan possesses a strong power. From this chaotic battle, it will be able to absorb an almost excessive amount of the resentment in the world for its own use. But without the devil seed, it has no way to retain that devil chi. That is also why what you all have seen from the very beginning has been devil soldiers, devil commanders, and those billowing black clouds. As of now, that is the reason why, once it converts the resentment that it absorbs into devil chi, it must release it, because otherwise, that devil chi will dissipate. It still needs the devil seed in Hung Jun's body." "Go on," Qiu Yangxi said coldly. "In order to reforge Mahamayuri, it must retrieve the devil seed," Yang Qiuzhong said slowly, sitting down with his legs folded under him. "The devil seed has already become intertwined with Hung Jun's 307 po, and if it were to be forcibly removed, that would harm them and cause them to scatter like ashes on the wind. The Kun God's plan is to have Li Jinglong use the heart lamp to first separate out the devil seed, return Mahamayuri's damaged 307 po back to their original state of pure magical energy, then, as the third step, reforge his Hunpo." Lu Su's face had already turned a greenish-gray and he murmured, "Xiaoyu." An odd smile appeared on Yang Qiuzhong's face, and he said slowly, "This was the method that I suggested to Kong Xian the first time, but as soon as the devil seed leaves Hung Jun's body, the devil Qi will be forcibly pulled away from illusions. At the same time, Hung Jun will be completely engulfed by the 3,000 nightmares, the resentment of life and death, and the sorrow of endless parting. Mara will truly be born then. Who will be able to confirm that the power of Li Jinglong's heart lamp will be strong enough to break through this devil Qi? Chu Yangxi murmured, Xiaoyu, you still have not given up. What you truly want is only the devil seed in Hung Jun's body. That's right, Yang Qiuzhong said. Allow Hung Jun and I to meld our souls. I will then devour his devil seed and absorb his devil Qi. When that moment comes, I will draw the devil seed away, then you can reforge Hung Jun's 307 Po. As for me, Chu Yangxi said, you will also call down a divine tribulation. Yang Qiuzhong, quite right. When a powerful burst of devil Qi floods in, that will allow me to break free of my Jiao body and turn into a dragon. It is also at that time that the divine tribulation will strike. Chu Yangxi, you might end up turning into ash under the might of the heavenly tribulation. Yang Qiuzhong, but I may succeed in conquering the tribulation and become a dragon. Chu Yangxi's and Yang Qiuzhong's eyes met. The courtyard of the exorcism department was absolutely silent. End chapter. Tianbao Fu Yao Lu. Chapter 176. A rescuing a young child. After one stick of incense's worth of time. I bet that An Lushan will win, and I'll put in 100 liang, Ashina Kyang said. I'll bet on An Lushan. I'll bet on Xiaoyu, Chu Yangxi said, his face expressionless. When Mo Rijin returned to the exorcism department, he didn't know what was going on at first. All he saw was that Yang Qiuzhong was kneeling to one side, while the exorcists were all sitting boldly at the table, making bets. He felt his vision fade out for a moment. What time do you think this is? What are you all doing here? Mo Rijin looked towards Yang Qiuzhong, bound by sigils and sitting on his knees, then to Li Jinglong lying to one side and found that he really had no words for this situation. Lu Su explained what had happened, and Mo Rijin's face was filled with disbelief as he looked towards Chu Yangxi. You believe him? Mo Rijin was frowning heavily. Chu Yangxi looked up and glanced at Mo Rijin, their eyes meeting. Mo Rijin continued, how many times has Xiaoyu tricked us? Can we believe his words? The Fox Yao case, the Corpse Ghost King case, Daming Palace, the Dragon Subduing Tower. This is my last chance, Yang Qiuzhong said composedly. To someone who will either succeed or die, what is the purpose of trying to end your lives? Back in the day, it was thanks to that one wish of Kong Xian's that my proposal was rejected. If he had listened to me back then, how would we have ended up how we are now? He's lying, Lu Su suddenly said. As soon as those words were spoken, Yang Qiuzhong's expression immediately changed. Everyone whipped their heads around to look at Lu Su. Lu Su got to his feet and came to a stop in front of Yang Qiuzhong, looking right into his eyes. Back then, the proposal you offered Kong Xian had nothing to do with Hung Jun's survival. All you wanted to do was to separate out the devil seed, turn into a dragon and fly away, but as soon as the devil seed leaves his body, Hung Jun's 307 Po will undoubtedly be destroyed. You lack a vital artifact, so how do you plan on protecting him? How do you know this? Yang Qiuzhong murmured, narrowing his eyes. This is impossible. Back then, only Kong Xian and I discussed this. Despite being deeply asleep, Li Jinglong's eyelashes fluttered a little. On an autumn night, a light rain was drizzling down gently, bringing a little bit of a chill. Yang Qiuzhong was departing from the Kong family's place, but when he arrived at the front courtyard, he turned to glance inside briefly. Then what about seeing air? Jia Yu's anxious voice asked. Little Li Jinglong crept noiselessly along, coming to a halt under the window. He turned his ear to the wall to listen to Kong Xian and Jia Yu's conversation. We need to use an artifact to reforge his 307 Po, Kong Xian replied. That way, the devil seed will be completely split off from him. Xiaoyu is not wrong, this is our only path forward. What artifact? Jia Yuz asked urgently. And how could your older brother be willing to give up his ability to be reborn in order to help Seeing Air reforge his Hunpo? He will, Kong Xian said. I've already sent out a letter asking my second brother to help me search for ancient artifacts located in the human realm. How many of Xiaoyu's words are true and how many are false? Jia Yuz asked darkly, her heart as tangled as a skein of thread as she paced through the room. Your Yaojin Palace and him are eternal enemies. That's only de Gur. Kong Xian protested. Yuz, listen, this is our only chance. I won't give Seeing Air to him. Jia Yuz replied. We'll go find this artifact, and after we find it, according to Xiaoyu's plan, we will reforge Seeing Air's 307 Po. No. Jia Yuz cut him short. I will never hand Seeing Air over to him. At this moment, there was a light sound from outside the room. Husband and wife immediately turned their heads, and Kong Xian asked alertly, who's there? In the corridor outside, little Hung Jun, clad in a snowy white shirt and shorts, stood there barefoot, his face filled with question marks as he looked towards little Li Jinglong. Little Li Jinglong immediately made a hush gesture, moving forward to tug Hung Jun back into his room, gesturing for him to get in as quickly as he could. Little Hung Jun asked quietly, who are you? Don't ask, little Li Jinglong swiftly replied. He chivied Hung Jun into bed, before he lifted the blankets and scooted to the inside of the bed, sleeping side by side with him. Not long after, Jia Yuz pushed the door open and came in. The room was pitch black, and little Hung Jun was lying soundly asleep, sunk in his dreams. Jia Yuz did not step forward, she simply shut the door and left. A coppery wind blew through Chang'an, and a bloody rain began to fall. Hung Jun swiftly strode away from the Linjian pavilion, piling the portraits in his arms into a wooden chest. The squad that would escort Li Longji out of the city was already prepared, and most of the bodyguards had been dismissed. The emperor of the human realm was wearing his cloak and his sword, but as he rode on that large horse, he was a little unsteady in his seat. Oust the evil consort! The clamoring soldiers of the 6 armies were gathered in front of the palace, and for a time, they looked as if they were at the peak of their grandeur. For 10 years, the Yang family's hand had stretched so far that it covered the sky, but their days of tyrannical abuse of power had now come to an end. The emperor was growing muddled-minded, and the rumor spread fiercely that it was because of imperial consort Yang's machinations. Feng Changqing and Gao Xianzi's deaths had been caused by Bian Lingcheng, and Bian Lingcheng had been elevated to his current position by Yang Qiuzhong. In Lushan growing in power, the Tong Pass falling into enemy hands, the emperor fleeing with his tail tucked between his legs, and the Great Tang on the verge of facing down a danger that threatened the existence of the country were all eventually blamed on the Yang family. All of you, shut up! Hung Jun shouted. Gao Lishi's face was the color of the dirt and he kept shrinking back to hide behind Hung Jun. The guards in the palace had already been dispatched to protect the families of the imperial court officials, and the 6 armies were on the verge of mutiny. But even if the bodyguards were here, they were no more than a group of eunuchs who knew some martial arts. How would they be able to compare to tens of thousands of trained soldiers? Hung Jun turned back to look at the caravan. Yang Yahuan and Lady Hangu had climbed into the cart, and Xingqing Palace was a chaos of men and horses. He was actually the only person protecting Li Longji and Yang Yahuan. Let's set out. Hung Jun stood in front of Li Longji, facing the thousands of men and horses that made up the royal army. He was the only person standing in their way, yet no one dared to step forward. Their eyes traveled from Li Longji to the caravan, then to him. The commander of the Xinwu army stepped forward, coming to a stop in front of Hung Jun. He asked, "Where's the Marquis of Yadan?" "He is escorting the citizens of Chang'an in their evacuation," Hung Jun replied concisely. "Are we going or not?" That commander's name was Chen Suanli. He and Hu Shen were of the same rank. Previously, when Hung Jun had been following Li Jinglong, he had seen him before, and Chen Suanli had also seen Hung Jun before. Yao Guai had been exterminated in Chang'an several times before, and though the rumors flew fast and thick like rain, the six armies also knew that Li Jinglong was not someone to be easily crossed. Upon seeing that the exorcism department had only sent one person, Chen Suanli was evidently feeling a little daring, and he mulled over that order a few times before giving upon his idea and raising a hand to give the order. Hung Jun mounted his horse and guarded the caravan, following Li Longji as they set out. The blood rain filled the air, and the soldiers of the six armies, without another word, all mounted their horses, despite being absolutely drenched. Hung Jun purposefully fell back a little, only to see the curtain of the carriage window being pulled aside, revealing the side of Yang Yahuan's face inside. Have all of the Yang family members been evacuated? Imperial Consort Yang asked. Hung Jun. I asked the Crown Prince to bring them into the palace, so that they and His Majesty could leave together, Imperial Consort Yang said with a wrinkle of her eyebrows. But eldest brother has not come, none of them have come. Hung Jun didn't know what to say. In the blink of an eye, the squad had already left Xinqing Palace. He thought for a moment, before replying, I don't know, but they must have left already. Go check on them for me, Imperial Consort Yang said. My duty is to protect His Majesty, Hung Jun replied. This is the mission that the exorcism department has assigned me. But Imperial Consort Yang remained unmoving. Nothing will happen to His Majesty. The one they hate is no other than me. Go, Hung Jun. Hand this to the steward. Hung Jun pondered for a moment, before galloping forward. Just as he was about to ask Chen Suanli, however, he saw that Chen Suanli had been waiting to converse with him all this time. What is your duty? Chen Suanli asked. To protect the royal family, Hung Jun said. The Yang family members. Chen Suanli replied, Kong Hung Jun, the exorcism department heeds the orders of the divine family, of His Majesty and His Highness the Crown Prince. I thought that you knew this clearly in your heart. Hung Jun studied Chen Suanli but did not reply. The heavy rain pattered down as the group traversed the main street. The Yang family is not the royal family, Chen Suanli said coldly. If the Crown Prince's orders conflict with the Yang family's orders, which would you prioritize? Hung Jun, you. Chen Suanli said darkly, tell me. I know that you exorcists have extraordinary powers and abilities at your beck and call, but if you truly wish for a fight, don't insult us by thinking we can't take you. Hung Jun was silent for a long while, before he replied, Jinglong answers to the emperor. Look at His Majesty. Chen Suanli vaulted off his horse and grabbed Hung Jun's collar, his words issuing forth from between gritted teeth. Do you think he can still recognize anyone right now? Hung Jun couldn't stop gasping for breath, but Chen Suanli continued. Tell me. We answer to the Crown Prince, Hung Jun finally amended. It was only then that Chen Suanli let Hung Jun go. Hung Jun said, I'll go find the Yang family members. Let me ask you something else, Chen Suanli said. Yang Kuazhong's true form is that of a Yaoguai, isn't that right? Hung Jun turned his head rapidly to look towards the horse carriage, before he looked back at Chen Suanli. Hung Jun replied yes, but there were other things involved in that. I was only asking you if he was or not, Chen Suanli said darkly. Hung Jun stopped talking. Chen Suanli then asked, Lady Kuakuo was also a Yaoguai, wasn't she? But the consort is not. Hung Jun replied angrily. He could already vaguely make out the danger that the Yang family currently found themselves in. Let her go. She's the only one left by your emperor's side. If the Yang family was not this group of evil Yao going around and causing havoc, Chen Suanli continued, then how would Milord have fallen to such an isolated state as now? Hung Jun held up the tally in his hand and said sternly, I will catch up with you. Chen Suan Li, if you have the guts to do so, then why don't you try doing something to the consort before I come back? You really want to scheme together with that evil woman and help the wicked perpetuate their evil deeds? Chen Suan Li asked. Think this through. Hung Jun did not allow him to say anything further. He turned his horse and galloped away. That autumn day was crisp and cold, and the sky stretched vast above. Under the camphor tree, 2 ropes dangled down from a branch, tied to a wooden board. It swayed slightly in the wind, and little Hung Jun sat on the swing, staring off into space. Little Li Jinglong hurried over, put down the book in his hand, and knelt in front of the swing. He hugged little Hung Jun and turned his head to the side, pressed his ear to his chest, and listened through his thin clothes. Little Hung Jun. Do you trust me? Little Li Jinglong asked. Little Hung Jun asked in response, about what? Little Li Jinglong replied, I will remove your devil seed, then use my artifact to rebuild your 307 po. Little Hung Jun asked, will it hurt a lot? Little Li Jinglong shook his head, but he did so with some hesitation. He then replied dejectedly, it may. Little Hung Jun studied little Li Jinglong, before he nodded slightly. Come with me. Little Li Jinglong took his hand, and he took this opportunity while both houses were empty of people to sneak out through the back door. What artifact do you have? Little Hung Jun was wearing wooden clogs as he ran along in the alleyway. Little Li Jinglong looked back and replied, the heart lamp. It's not mine, but I borrowed it. Do you not need to return it? Little Hung Jun asked. Little Li Jinglong. Night fell over Chang'an, yet the rain still fell in torrential sheets. Hung Jun directed his horse through the streets of Chang'an, until he came to a stop outside the Yang family estate. The estate had long since been emptied, and countless precious treasures were piled about haphazardly. Ancient scrolls, calligraphy, and paintings, as well as jewelry had been strewn about in this heavy rain. Is anyone here? Hung Jun shouted, wiping his face. But the place was echoingly empty. Hung Jun picked up a painting and tossed it into the hall, before he remounted his horse, riding it through the long corridor, backyard, and gardens. He couldn't find any living people, however, and he figured that they had long since fled on their own. He sucked in a deep breath, wanting to go back and check on the exorcism department, but for some unknown reason, through pure coincidence, he thought of another family. With that, he left the alleyway, crossed 2 more main roads, and entered another small alleyway. Is anyone here? Hung Jun pushed his way into a house, and when he saw a door hanging half open he hurriedly dismounted and went inside. This was the family of Chen Suiang's descendants. Hung Jun hurried inside, only to see a person and a child lying on the bed. That person was Madame Duan. When the child saw Hung Jun, he simply made a shh gesture, before saying, "Don't wake my mom." Hung Jun had seen him several times when he was still an infant, but after these few years had passed, he hadn't thought he would have grown so big. Back in the day, the first time he came to seek out the Chen family descendants, this child had been almost a year old. Now, 3 years had passed, and he was already 4. Hung Jun asked, "Why is she still sleeping? Hurry and leave the city." "You're all right, right?" He reached a hand out to stroke Madame Duan's forehead, only to find that her entire body was icy cold. At some point, she was already dead. Hung Jun. Hung Jun didn't know why he had thought of the original owner of the heart lamp, but he had decided to come and give them the tally. If Madame Duan hadn't made it out of the city yet, then he would give it to her so she could take her child and flee. He hadn't expected to see the scene in front of him instead. As it turned out, Madame Duan had caught the chills when autumn came, and she had been ill for some time. Thankfully, she still had some money to spend, so her various neighbors had been bringing her soup and medicine every day and looking after her. This continued until 3 days ago, when An Lushan's army besieged the city, and the residents of Chang'an began to flee. In the span of a single night, the entire ward emptied out, so no one was left to look after this mother and child. After such a long illness, Madame Duan was on her deathbed, and she began to run a high fever. She departed this mortal world after a night of suffering that fever. This child sat by the side of the bed. When he was hungry, he ate some of the cold buns on the hearth. He hadn't realized yet that his mother was dead, he thought she was merely asleep. For a moment, Hung Jun found himself at a loss for how to persuade this child to leave. But in the blink of an eye, there was a huge boom outside the courtyard, and the child jumped, greatly frightened. Hung Jun swiftly walked outside and studied the color of the sky. The blood rain stopped. Instantly, a strong wind began to blow, and the black clouds came pouring in once more. The child asked, "Are the Yaoguai about to enter the city?" Hung Jun vaulted up onto the rooftop, looking out into the distance, to see the black clouds billowing forth as they began to seep into Chang'an. "Who told you that?" Hung Jun asked. The child replied, "They're all saying that." Hung Jun then asked, "What's your name?" The child replied, "Chen Feng." "I know you, you're my family's benefactor." Hung Jun. Chen Feng continued to chatter on. "My mom said that you and Li Zhenji helped us out a lot so that I could study properly and be a good person." "You're so little," Hung Jun asked quietly, "yet you've started studying already." "I recognize so many words now," Chen Feng said. "Have you come to take us away? I'll go wake mom up." And saying that, he ran inside to shake Madame Duan. Hung Jun couldn't resist shutting his eyes. Chen Feng called out to her for a while, but he seemed to realize something. His calls started to take on a sob, as well as a kind of perplexed terror. "There's no time left," Hung Jun said, sweeping in and picking Chen Feng up. Chen Feng shouted, "My mom's not up yet. She's dead." When Hung Jun thought about his mother, he suddenly felt 1,000 sorrows crash over him all at once. "She's dead," Hung Jun repeated. He hugged Chen Feng tightly, ignoring his loud shouts and cries as the horse galloped out of the little alley. The entirety of Chang'an was in chaos right now, and everyone was trying to get out of the city. The walls of ice that Xianming had constructed outside the city had already collapsed, and in the distance came the cries of the earth-swallowing beasts. The entire city looked, in that moment, as if the end of days had come. Chen Feng shouted, "Where are you taking me? Listen to me." Hung Jun shouted back at Chen Feng. Chen Feng was immediately so frightened he didn't dare to make a sound, and he curled up in Hung Jun's arms, trembling non-stop. Hung Jun steered his horse towards the eastern market, whose vast expanse had long since grown echoingly empty, as if it was a set of ruins. He wanted to hand Chen Feng over to Imperial Consort Yang, but based on the situation the 6 armies were currently in, things were not safe, so he had no choice but to bring him back to the exorcism department to figure out something to do with him there. End chapter.